The idiots on Fox News had some thoughts for us on stimulus checks. Let's take a look at this.
By the way, if these closures continue, Brian, and the government gives these workers a check for a little while, they're going to have checks for the rest of their life because there won't be any bars and restaurants to go back to work, and they're all going to be closed. We're all going to be forced, or these workers are all going to be forced to be on, the government dole forever because they're crushing these small businesses that won't come back.
Maybe that's the goal.
Maybe.
Well,
maybe it is. That's what they're doing in China.
I don't even know where to begin with this. So he's fear-mongering about, you want to give people stimulus checks? I mean, what they're going to have checks for the rest of their lives. Okay, first of all, no, they're not, because this is what's being negotiated as a one-time stimulus check. But I wish they were talking about it for the rest of their lives. And by the way, with Social Security, that is a check for the rest of your life in your older years. Are you against Social Security? So already, I mean, it's already just like obnoxious and silly. And then he says, well, they're going to be on the government dole forever. Wait a second. You're the people who say, hey, man, like, we pay taxes. I don't like that. I want to pay fewer taxes. So if you're paying taxes to the government and then the government cuts you back a stimulus check, aren't you just getting your own money back? Isn't that one way of looking at it? Like, you could look at this as a tax cut, right? Like, that's one way to look at this. Because if you paid in taxes more than $1,200 and then you get back $1,200, you could just say that's like a tax cut. Right? That's one way of looking at it. You could frame it as a subsidy. You could frame it as a tax cut. But, that's our money. Like, we're getting back our money from the government. So when he's like, oh, they'll be on the government dole forever. And also the idea that they're not going to want to work. That's what he says. People are not going to want to work. Okay, well, specifically during a pandemic, maybe, probably. But that's a good thing. It's a pandemic. We want to save lives. You go out, you're more likely to get it. You're more likely to die. We got 315,000 Americans dead and rising steadily. So, yeah, if you don't want to work in the short term, great. That would be fine. Like, countries are still locking down and everything. Some people want to go out there and roll the dice. Okay, I guess. But yeah, some people want to stay home. I don't think that's crazy. But the idea is, hey, if they're on the dole forever, maybe they'll never want to work. I don't buy that even a little bit. Maybe a tiny percentage would be like that, but the overwhelming majority of people, even if you got $1,200 per month, every month, I mean, that's not enough to live on, really. Like, you really, really got to pinch pennies to try to make ends meet. I mean, look at an apartment in New York City. I mean, even in the cheapest places, like, your rent would be $1,200. You know what I mean? So that's just your rent. Then you got to get food. Like, there's the idea that if you cut people a check, they will forever not want to work. Well, it depends on the size of the check. And really, if we don't have our basic needs met, because nobody's making enough money to get their basic needs met, because there's, we still have working poor people, a minimum wage is not a living wage, well then, that money is just going to help you get your basic needs met, which is a good thing. That's a good thing. I'm telling you, man, I definitely agree with UBI. It's one of my top issues now. I think Andrew Yang was 100% correct to put that front and center. And now you see the political reality is changing to accept UBI as almost like the most pragmatic solution to a lot of these problems. Because when you have an economic downturn, what's the best way to give people help? Cut them a check immediately, right? So it's like, and it doesn't require, some complex, bloated bureaucracy that might not work efficiently. No, it's just cut them a check. It's the idea of Social Security, except doing it for all. And then the funniest part is that's what they're doing in China. Does this Fox News host have any idea what they're doing in China? No, she has no idea. None of these people have any idea. But they casually comment on it like, that's what they do in China, and we obviously, by definition, anything they do, we don't want to ever do. What about, like, high-speed rail? That's what they're doing in China. Terrible. But no, that's an example of them doing something good. So, like, that's not, they think that's like a debate stopper, right? Drop the mic. China bad. Got him. What? And I don't even know if that's what they're doing in China. I don't know what she's talking about. I can't believe anybody watches Fox, but they do. Fewer and fewer people now, though, because some have graduated to the even more insane One American News Network and Newsmax, which is a story that I'm going to get to a little later on, because Fox is really bad, but it is true the One American News and Newsmax are worse. I think it's objectively correct to say that. But that's not giving Fox a pass because this stuff is totally unacceptable.